Hello, this is David Hall, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the first day of Summer IoT Days, presented by the IoT M2M Council. Before we begin, we wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets which you can use. All of these widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. The webcast is being streamed through your computer, so there is no dial-in number. For the best audio quality, please make sure your computer speakers or your headset are turned on and the volume is up so that you can hear the presenters. If your slides are delayed, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues located in the Help widget at the bottom of your screen. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available later today and can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. The presenters may answer questions at the end of each session, but please feel free to ask questions at any time during the presentation. Any unanswered questions may be responded to offline as well. Just a word about the IMC. We are the IoT sector's largest trade association with 25,000 individual enterprise users and product makers as adopter members. Our board consists of over 30 of the most influential global IoT solutions providers. Our mission is to accelerate the deployment of IoT technology for the public good, and we look at this conference as exactly in keeping with that mission. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Fred Jens, who is the CEO and founder of IoT Launch. Fred, welcome.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David, and welcome everyone to Summer IoT Days. Again, my name is Fred Jens. I will be the moderator today, and it is my pleasure to introduce Andrew Nilsson, and he is the partner manager of Gertem North America. And he's going to spend a bit of time talking to us about the telematics as a way to improve customer service. I'll turn it over to you immediately, Andrew.
Thank you for the introduction, Fred, and thank you to the IMC for organizing another great event. I'm delighted to be here with you today to discuss how we at Wayland use telematics to improve customer service by solving global challenges. First, let me briefly introduce my company, Gertem. Established in 2002, we currently have more than 300 employees across the globe with our headquarters in Vilnius, Lithuania. I'm based out of our Boston, Massachusetts office, where I work with our North American Wayland partners. Our flagship product, Wayland, is a comprehensive platform for telematics and IoT, available as both a cloud and server-based solution. As one of the largest GPS tracking platforms in the world today, Wayland has more than 3.4 million devices connected globally, and we track more than 100 million miles each day. We're hardware agnostic, and we're approaching 3,000 integrated devices from 650 plus hardware manufacturers. We do not work directly with end users, but instead operate through channel partners. Today, our global Wayland community services clients in 151 countries. As many of you here today would agree, telematics and IoT in general can be beneficial to virtually any business, domain, or country. It is achieved with the help of flexible software like we offer with Wayland, as well as integrators' expertise, connectivity options, and a diverse hardware selection. Applying the benefits of telematics to a business might include, for example, using fuel control and automation to make your company more sustainable, thus saving money and also increasing revenue. It all depends on how you harness the power of telematics. So now, let me share with you some practical examples from around the globe to explain how telematics can help business owners cut costs, improve service quality, and ultimately satisfy customers by solving their unique challenges. As we all know, COVID-19 reshaped our lives in one way or another. It forced us to change our approach to virtually every situation. In the summer of 2020, a Canadian Wayland partner faced the shutdown of a large construction project due to a government-imposed lockdown. The construction site in question covered a total area of 67 square kilometers with more than 2,000 employees working on site. In order to resume this project, it was mandated that they enact the required safety measures with proven results. Keeping this in mind, the company decided to look for a telematics solution that would allow them to track and manage their cleaning crew. They wanted to ensure that usual staff resources like trailers, bathrooms, and hand washing stations were cleaned or disinfected a specific number of times during an 8-hour shift. The public health authorities would only allow them to resume on-site operations if they could provide detailed reports showing the necessary steps were taken. In addition, they required an alert system that could quickly inform management whenever the cleaning supplies, such as disinfectant or paper towels, were required throughout the site. Our Canadian Wheel-On partner developed a custom solution for this client, which fulfilled all of the government requirements. Their solution included the use of our mobile app WeaTag, which turns any phone into a GPS tracker. This was installed on the mobile phones of cleaning personnel. They also developed a custom solution which was integrated with Wheel-On using our open API. This custom platform was used as a central database where all the cleaning events were registered and reports were generated. Initially, they tried to create geofences which would help them get alerts whenever the cleaner entered a specified area. However, that was not efficient for them. So a unique QR code was installed on every asset which needed to be cleaned or refilled. With WeaTag, the staff could access these QR codes and alert management whenever they were running out of supplies like paper towels or sanitizers. They used reports in Wheel-On to record all cleaning operations that needed to be done on a daily basis. Our partner was remarkably able to create and implement this solution within 48 hours, and they trained the staff themselves on how to use WeaTag on their phones. With this unique solution, the client benefited in many ways, including compliance with all regulations to ensure the health and safety of more than 2,000 employees on site. They were able to prove that all regulations were fulfilled through custom reports submitted to the Public Health Authority. We can only imagine the potential financial losses the client was facing due to ongoing delays with the reopening of this site. Ultimately, the client was thrilled to find a successful solution for this challenge, and they plan on implementing similar projects in the future, long after COVID hopefully leaves us for good. Next, let's look at an agricultural challenge from Australia. A leasing company offered special machinery for hay baling. This machinery presses the hay and packs it into piles. The company offered its services to farms that needed to turn the grass into hay piles. Each farm usually rents this equipment as the machinery is expensive, typically around $175,000 to $250,000 each. The hay balers are in the fields for 24 hours a day to finish their work before the end of the season. Due to this tight schedule, it is essential to make sure that the machinery is utilized properly to prevent breakdowns. The number of hay bales produced must be calculated because farmers pay not only for the time they rent machinery, but also for the number of bales. Before this project implementation, the customer could not directly obtain this data, or it was sent with delays and often inaccurate. Management couldn't reach the location if there was an issue with reporting, as the equipment was often leased by farmers in remote areas. Conflicts arose with farmers who reported fewer bales produced, and it was impossible to track rebales. The pile would often fall apart, and somebody would have to fix it manually. The rebale would then not be counted. GPS trackers were installed on hay balers to track their location, speed, as well as additional parameters and the data from the other equipment. A sensor was added to calculate the rotation of the arm inside the baler, and 4 rotations meant that 1 bale was made. The counter was connected to the tracker and sent info about the number of piles produced. A standard iButton reader was used to identify drivers and connect them to the work performed. A buzzer was set up to notify drivers about the necessity to use identification tablets. Waterproof boxes and proximity sensors completed the hardware part of the solution. All the data was sent to Wheel-On. Geofences were created to know how many bales could be produced for a specific area. This allowed returning customers to compare how many bales were made versus the previous year, and also plan and estimate future results. Notifications were used to see if the bale numbers dropped off. A special button was installed to calculate rebales. As soon as the driver pressed the button, the rebale was counted. It's also recorded in Wheel-On via the notifications module. The Wheel-On reports module was used to show management the number of bales and rebales. This solution was implemented in the middle of a baling season, so there wasn't much time to install the equipment. That's why the client chose this solution type instead of relying on the built-in CAN bus, as the GPS trackers and sensors were less expensive and quicker to install. This project actually won our annual IoT Project of the Year competition in the agriculture category. Their solution allowed the leasing company to accurately calculate the number of hay bales produced and report it to management in a timely fashion. The data was collected automatically, so there was no human factor that could influence the reports. Plus, the tedious back and forth between drivers and clients was eliminated, and the reports were used as proof of the completed job and also as a reference when analyzing any fraud attempts or customer issues. Let's move to Tbilisi, Georgia, where a customer faced a very common challenge. This time, an IoT solution was needed for a company providing public utility services, including waste collection, recycling, collection maintenance, and outdoor lighting network operations. They installed several underground garbage containers across the city and needed a solution incorporating real-time monitoring of all containers so they could dispatch their garbage trucks only when those containers were full. For this project, our Wheel-On partner in Georgia created unique ultrasonic sensors working through batteries, GSM technology, and standard micro SIM cards. The sensor was installed under the container's lid, and it could detect if the container was full. All sensors were connected to the company's server, which was designed for up to 10,000 data transmissions and up to 100,000 measurements. The battery life was up to 10 years, depending on the transmission settings. After sending data, the sensors would go into sleep mode until the next data transmission, thereby saving the battery charge. This was essential because bringing power to all the garbage containers in the city was associated with great difficulty and significant costs. As a result, whenever the containers were full, the responsible parties received alert notifications and could take corresponding actions all in real time. Quality of life in the city improved, as residents didn't have issues with overflowing garbage containers, unpleasant smells, or nasty rodents. The trucks were sent only when the containers were full, so the company saved on wasteful trips from picking up garbage when containers were only partially full. The customer got a solution that saved money, and thanks to IoT, also improved city life. Next, I'll take you to Africa, where a multinational corporation faced the problem of monitoring and maintaining diesel generators in remote areas of Tanzania. There was enormous difficulty realizing a smooth supply of electricity, which affected the performance of the generators. The necessity to monitor these generators was evident, but it was expensive to constantly send employees to these remote locations. That's why the company wanted to have a GPS tracking solution which could react instantly to the problems as they appeared. A Wheel-On partner from Africa successfully solved this task by using a system of components combined to enable control over fuel level, power supply, and regular maintenance. The level of diesel fuel in the tanks was monitored, and at the same time, different sensors controlled the temperature and other generator parameters. All of the data from the generators was collected in Wheel-On, and the sensor data was visualized and monitored by a Wheel-On-based app named Sensilator. This was configured in such a way that each tab served as a dashboard for the generator, and if any malfunction arose, the dispatcher would receive the notification and send a repair team to fix it. Expenses were reduced because now the equipment was maintained and repaired in an efficient manner. There was no need to increase staff or spend money on wasteful trips to these remote locations. This Wheel-On-based solution enabled the customer to provide a constant supply of electricity, which not only saved money, but also increased profits as the recipients of the electricity were satisfied with their service and didn't suffer constant losses caused by frequent power outages. This example shows that telematics influences not only the segment it's physically applied to, but it also brings optimization to other parts of the business. In this case, controlling generators influenced the stability of various businesses and households dependent on these generators, and it also bolstered the electricity supplier's reputation. Finally, let me take you to the quiet island of Ibiza in Spain's Balearic Islands. There was a transport company operating in Ibiza, which assists tourists and businessmen arriving on the island. The company performs trips from the airport to hotels and back, as well as to various excursions and business meetings. While that seems simple at first, they encountered a number of problems. First, they realized passengers couldn't find the pickup points because they weren't described properly. Then they would have issues locating the correct bus. At times, passengers had to wait much longer than expected for the bus to arrive, which negatively affected the company's reputation and also resulted in irritated clients. Further, management had a difficult time ascertaining how much work was performed by their staff, which resulted in pay discrepancies. Our Wheelon partner from Spain solved these problems by using Wheelon and a customer management system that they integrated with Wheelon. The partner installed GPS trackers on all buses. Using the Wheelon app for iOS and Android, the customer was able to monitor the working hours and location of their drivers. By using notifications and geofences, their dispatcher could easily identify which vehicles were currently unavailable. Passengers received all relevant information from the customer management system, including pickup time, location, and the bus registration number. They also received a locator link, which tracked the bus's position in real time. The results here were clear. The company's reputation improved as their various clients had clear communication at all times regarding the bus's location, schedule, and route, thus resulting in satisfied customers. The company's services were now transparent and professional. Also, their employees' morale improved as there was better organization regarding their hours, pay, and expected routes. This is yet another example of how IoT can transform businesses across the globe while at the same time significantly improve the customer experience. Thank you all so much for your time today, and thank you again to the IMC. Let's see if we have time for a couple quick questions, Fred.
So, Andrew, that was great. It was like a travel log of use cases. So, yeah. Very, very, very well done. So, I encourage anybody to enter a question in the question dialog box. In the first one we have here is you mentioned the IoT Project of the Year competition in the presentation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. The IoT Project of the Year competition was started by Gertum in 2020, and it rewards outstanding telematics or IoT projects across the globe. We accept entries from any country and industry, and there are 17 different categories where you can submit your projects, such as cold chain transportation, public safety, and personal monitoring, to name a few. The deadline for this year's competition is July 26th, and you can submit your project at iot-project.com or visit our blog at gertum.com, which has a post with all of the relevant information.
Very good. We have one more time for one more, I think. So Wheelon looks very, very open, and you mentioned something about hardware. Can you really tell us what hardware can be used with the Wayland-based projects?
Absolutely. So yeah, Wheelon is a hardware agnostic platform. So we currently have more than 2,700 devices, representing about 650 plus manufacturers that are integrated with Wheelon. And further, our partners frequently request new device integrations, and we integrate these devices at no charge. Every month, there are new device integrations thanks to our great hardware team and the suggestions from our Wheelon partner community.
Very good. Well, Andrew, that's all we have today. But for a member spotlight presentation, this was top shelf. Really, really appreciate your time and energy to put into this. And we thank you for being an IMC member and sharing with us all these use cases.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So thank you. That's going to move us to the next section of the program. And this is going to be a panel comprised of some very distinguished participants. The topic is next generation connectivity. We talk about ubiquitous cellular connectivity. This topic here is really going to make the world ubiquitous. So we're very pleased to talk about LP-WANs and the networks and the emergence of LEO satellites that's really leading to some unique opportunities that we see in the space. We went from use cases and applications. This presentation for our IMC guest is really going to be informative. This is one of the first times that we've ever really in detail covered the LEO satellite space. And I'm very pleased to welcome our panel. So Saeed Hassan, a friend of IMC's for a very, very long time, and we fondly refer to him as Z. Fabien Jordan, CEO and founder of Astrocast, is joining us. Gianluca Rodolfo is the Chief Business Officer of Satiliat, and Rajan Shah is the VP North America and Sales for Core. So with that, what I want to do is kind of get out of the way and let each panelist present a little bit of their take around, how LP-WAN, 5G, satellites, and all of these network technologies can really interplay to solve a lot of the what I'll call next generation applications and solutions. And we'll start out and we'll go down the list as we've got them in order, and I'll turn it over to you, Z.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate the time and your introduction there, and thanks to the IMC. I'm going to try and focus primarily on LPWA because we have two people who are experts in the area of satellite IoT who can give you more information about what they're up to. I may touch on a little bit of some of the older satellite communication technologies that were being used for IoT, but only briefly, because we have the right people here to give you more information about what's going on today. I'll start with a quick slide on ARIS, who we are. We've been working more than 25 years in the space of providing these kinds of solutions, connectivity and data analytics, all the way from the device to the servers for the applications that are on our network. I'm one of the founders. I've been here through all of the interesting changes that have taken place in the industry, indeed, before even the term IoT was coined. We have a global footprint. Our devices operate around the world. We have registrations from more than 165 countries at this point on our devices, obviously some more than others. North America was our kicking off point years ago, so we have more devices here, but Europe and Africa and Far East is coming on pretty strong. Broad range of IoT markets for obvious reasons. IoT can impact just about anything that needs data to be sent remotely. In our case, it's all cellular today and will continue to be cellular today. The kinds of numbers that we are posting are just sort of a very large application base of IoT that can use cellular. Obviously, satellite provides some advantages that will be covered in a few minutes. And hopefully people will walk away with an expectation of what's happening both in the cellular industry and what's happening in the satellite industry. Let me start by giving you some information from a report that Ericsson publishes. Their last report in November of 2021 identified what's happening in the cellular IoT space in terms of growth over the next few years. And as you can see, the transition from 2021, 2022, all the way up to 2027, you can see the numbers are increasing quite dramatically. What they show in the upper left corner in that little tiny spreadsheet there is the wide area IoT devices are expected to grow from 2.1 to 5.9 billion. That's billion with a B devices, where cellular IoT is comprised of that total for about 1.9 billion to growing to about 5.5 billion. Now, they also mentioned short-range IoT numbers, things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and others, which are more, I would say, geared towards consumer space applications, but also towards things like smart buildings and other IoT applications that those technologies can serve. The growth is phenomenal. And what I want to show you is the change that's occurring in what we call the LPWA technologies, which is NB-IoT and CAT-M, or LTE-M as it's currently known. The change from 2022, when it's sort of the third in that list, all the way up to 2027, when it becomes a primary technology in use today for IoT applications being deployed worldwide. That's a phenomenal growth, much more so than the other areas. And I think that's an indication of how strongly LPWA is going to have an impact on this cellular IoT world as we know today. Now, I want to give you a little bit of an eye chart, and I apologize if people have difficulty getting this, but you can download the PDF later on. I want to identify the kinds of wireless connectivity choices that are available for IoT, all the way from short range in the upper row down to satellite being shown in the bottom row there. And what I did in this chart was to sort of pick one interesting objective of that technology, the characteristic of that objective, and the kind of implementations that have been done for that particular characteristic to be met, and then the kind of typical IoT application that is being deployed using that technology. So if you go down through this list, you can see that anything from less than 10 centimeters all the way up to having a global coverage with satellite is I'm trying to identify what's possible and what's available. And if you have a scenario where you can use cellular, great. I want to identify that the low power cellular that is incorporated into 5G, the first two of the what are called the massive machine communication technologies being LTE-M and NB-IoT, representing the low power nature of that technology as well as the giant scale. We're looking at the ability to provide hundreds of millions of units worldwide. And then that technology allows you to get to the billions that Ericsson is projecting and others are projecting will happen. And the kind of typical application that we see in LTE-M, which is the primary technology that we've deployed today, is excellent 2G 3G replacement technology, because those are indeed being replaced worldwide slowly. And of course, the changes that are occurring in the NB-IoT space. Now, I've identified sort of a coverage characteristic which is met by the LEO and GEO operations that are out there, satellite, but you'll hear more about that in a minute. Some of the other characteristics and objective that I think are going to be met, particularly when you have full constellations in place for the satellites, for the LEO satellites, will be sort of under 100 milliseconds once we get there, and maybe a second or more, maybe 5 seconds when you have latencies in a typical GEO application, depending on where you might be on the planet that is trying to access that particular satellite. Now, these are choices, okay? These are all of the available technologies that are out there from a variety of providers, not just us, but you'll hear more from people like Core in a moment and other providers as well. So the question comes up always, how do you select, okay? What are the choices that you have? What can you do? Well, it depends on the requirements. I've only identified a few little bullet points where I think that people can think about. Coverage, right? Satellites can provide global service where cellular may not exist. In terms of scale, the whole point behind LP-WA is to offer the ability to deploy applications at massive scale. And then when you have protocols like LTE-M and NB-IoTs, one or two of which are being used for some of the satellite services as well, you can achieve long battery life and operate for years, because when you get to the billions of devices, the energy requirements of these devices is going to be a concern. And there are, of course, hybrid technology deployments that have already taken place, and I want to sort of highlight a few of those perhaps. You can consider using available technology, available connectivity services when you have devices in motion. A device may be in cellular coverage at certain points and then leave that cellular coverage, and now you need to be able to use a satellite service. We have customers who have put together hybrid devices with existing satellite technology using cellular on us and satellite on those entities when cellular doesn't exist. And there are, for example, I'll go ahead and point out that there are LEO services available today that people are using for IoT, although perhaps not the kind of low power technologies that may be available in the near future. The key point that I always mention to these folks is to set your latency expectations correctly, particularly when you go from one service to another. If you don't take that into account, that can cause some interesting issues with receiving data. But if it works out well for you, great. Then, of course, you have to manage the multiple radios that might be required if you have both a satellite and a cellular service, depending on the technology that you pick. I have to worry about the fact that data may be coming through to dual paths, and, of course, device management when you have different numbering schemes being used for the radios and the modules and the provisioning of the devices. Then you need to worry about all that. But this can all be handled. It can be done. It's been demonstrated already with existing satellite deployments, and some of the newer ones that are coming along will obviously have some capabilities that may even simplify the task for going with cellular protocols that can be used with satellite services. I'd like to leave you with one last slide, which is there is a book that I have which is free for download. It's a PDF that will give you sort of an overview of the IoT. It's a little, it was written a couple of years ago, so I do need to update it, but it does mention all of the kinds of things that people need to be concerned about when you're deploying an IoT application. And that's pretty much it, Fred, unless anyone has any questions. Or we can wait for the end, I guess.
Thank you, Z. That's great overview, and you touched on all the modalities well. So let's move to our next speaker, and we'll hold the questions until we can have a conversation with the panel at the end. So Astrocast, it's all yours, sir.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Fred. Thanks for having me on this panel. It's great to be part of this discussion. My name is Fabien Jordan. I'm an engineer and entrepreneur with about 15 years of experience in the satellite IoT business. I founded Astrocast in 2014 together with a team of experts of the industry. And we are now one of the leading emerging satellite operators in Europe with 12 satellites active in orbit and a satellite IoT commercial service that has been launched earlier this year. So at Astrocast, we believe in a connected world where IoT is global and benefits all. And I'm sure all of us here today fully agree on such a vision, but I'd like to put the emphasis on the word global, as today terrestrial network only cover a small fraction of our planet, talking about 10 to 15% of the actual surface area that is covered on the planet. And at Astrocast, we decided to do something about that, to do something about this huge coverage issue that is impacting all the global businesses, because business is truly global, but connectivity is not. And we've been very successful in building a new infrastructure that solves this problem. We are now operating this global satellite IoT network, which allows our customers to expand their IoT strategy to the remote regions of the world. So we really focus on the remote regions as a complement or supplement to the terrestrial network, and we work hand in hand with these network operators. So we are a connectivity provider. Our customers are OEMs, systems integrators, device manufacturers, and large telcos as well. Main sectors currently targeted are maritime, oil and gas, environmental application, agriculture, and livestock, to name a few. So we're not in the backhauling business. We really offer a direct to satellite communication service. And to do so, we have fully developed a proprietary technology together with Airbus and other key players of the industry to efficiently connect your IoT sensors or your IoT devices directly to our satellite network. Our core technology is a fully certified chipset-based modem that we call the Astronaut S. This is a product that we have released early this year together with our connectivity service. This product is mass-produced and is currently being integrated in devices from our growing ecosystem of partners. Technically, our system works everywhere on the planet, from the poles to the equator, and it works extremely well. Then in terms of market access, we are opening more and more countries. So we are currently operational over international waters as well as over more than 70 countries, mostly Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. And soon we're going to open the Americas. Our typical end-to-end latency at this stage is about 2 hours, but this depends a bit on the exact location of the asset. So this latency of a few hours is the time it takes for a message to go from the modem or the module, as we call it, to your computer. So this latency will continue to decrease down to below 15 minutes. And as we deploy more satellites in orbit. Our system is bidirectional. So not only can you send message, but you can retrieve, not only can you retrieve message from your device, but you can send commands as well to your asset remotely. It is a store and forward system. So basically the module establishes the link with the satellite network, which stores the data. And then when a ground station is in view, the data is then transmitted to the ground and then to our database secure system, and then to your computer. This infrastructure, we fully manage it, so we are vertically integrated. We can control the entire chain here, from the chipset that's inside the module down to the database system where our customers can retrieve their messages. This includes obviously the space segments, which is made of reliable miniaturized satellites of the 5-kilogram class. So really talking about small satellites the size of a shoebox, which are obviously much, still very reliable, but much more affordable, and therefore we can pass this saving to our customer and have a service that is consistent with what you see in the IoT industry. And controlling the entire infrastructure gives us a unique flexibility and agility, especially to make it evolve with time and to optimize it to the demands of the market. Our communication are based on the L-band spectrum, which is right next to the GPS band, which is by far the best spectrum for this kind of services. We sell our satellite IoT connectivity in the form of low-cost monthly data plans associated associated to the module, the modem, that we sell as a product, and that enables these data subscriptions. We think that our model is today, with these elements that I mentioned, without a doubt, the best technology available today on the market for direct-to-satellite IoT. Thanks to its ultra low power consumption, its very low cost, and the small form factor, not only of the module itself, but of the antenna that you can see on the next slide, which is a patch antenna, very similar to a GPS patch antenna. By the way, you can use the same antenna for both the GPS, the GNSS signal, and the IoT communication, which further reduce the size of the device and which makes integration very elegant. In the middle, you can see our Astrocast Plus, which is a product that combines the module and the antenna for customers who don't have all the resources to integrate themselves. So we support them to reduce the development cycle. And we've put together a number of products and tools, like you can see on this slide, dev kit, hardware, software example, everything that you need to integrate satellite IoT connectivity into your application. So there is a large number of use cases. Obviously, the market is huge, but also fragmented. It's the case for most IoT company. But these are the main segments with really a dominance right now in the maritime industry. But we see a lot of application in the agriculture and livestock for livestock tracking, monitoring, environmental applications, and oil and gas as well. And to conclude, just one example of a use case, and we will talk more about that next week. We are releasing a white paper specifically on the supply chain visibility problem that is a real problem, for the shipping container companies. Our customers, they require global network availability in order to track and monitor the location and the conditions of their goods in areas that are not covered by cellular networks. As I said, most of the maritime area are not covered. So adding satellite connectivity really solve this problem in a very elegant way. And we have a lot of traction from that sector in particular right now, building container tracking and monitoring solution. One of the key players we are working with in this sector is Telefonica, and we're very happy to work with them and to combine Telefonica cellular network with the Astrocast satellite solution into one IoT connection solution that allows Telefonica and its customer to track these assets globally. With this, I will conclude. I think I've done my time, and I'll be happy to give you more detail in the discussion. Oh, maybe just a few words about the team. So we have a team mostly based in Switzerland. We're talking about 85 members, very dedicated people working to make this new generation of infrastructure a new standard in the industry. And we recently, you may have seen this, we recently acquired the company Hyber in the Netherlands. So our team just grew from 85 to 140 people. And this opens up new opportunities to accelerate our OEM strategy and also enhance our direct-to-market strategy. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Fabien. So very, very interesting, and I'm very excited for this next slide that's going to be presented by Gianluca from Satiliat, because it's really going to talk to the evolution and the migration from sort of legacy standard defined satellites, which were typically gateway based. And we took a stop by with Astrocast to talk about some of the newer technologies. And now we're going to go to something that's even more, 3GPP standards based that the terrestrial guys will also understand very, very well. So with that, Jean-Luc, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody. It's very, very exciting to be here. And well, thanks to Fabien and Astrocast for the presentation specifically, because I think it's quite similar what we're doing. Okay, we're trying to solve the very similar issue of no coverage in most of the world, actually. Okay, as Fabien said, we are probably at around 85–90% of the world without coverage, and actually this wouldn't be an issue if we would like to connect humans, because cellular connectivity objective is to serve human beings. Okay, actually it's part of probably the licenses around the world to be there where humans are. Now, when you want to serve the things where you have a gap, okay, and that's the gap we are serving. Something special came out recently, and we have been behind it, working very hard in 3GPP and leading this in terms of contribution. So Satellite has been the most active in terms of contribution to a 3GPP. Okay, and what's happening is that for the first time in history, satellite industry is not working just on proprietary, but also there's a possibility to use the standard. Okay, and but just to mention 3GPP, of course, is an association that most of you will know. It's the association which sets the standards around the world. Okay, so the good thing is that the standard that is used for NTN, not terrestrial network, is the same standard that is used for terrestrial cellular, which basically means that with the same device you have currently using on cellular, without any additional antennas, without any change in the hardware, you can connect whenever you are out of cellular coverage to satellite, okay, specifically to Satellite. Okay, Satellite is the unique, unrevealed, and only LEO constellation on standard. Okay, and this has been our mission since 2019. Okay, that's what we believed. We've been working since 2 years on doing that. Just to show you our innovative approach, again, it's a standard-based satellite IoT constellation. We have the satellites going around the globe, as you know, and let's say you have a truck. The truck connects to the 5G tower, so terrestrial. As soon as it gets out of cellular coverage, the device is looking for a new network, and this new network is satellites. Okay. We connect to the telecom operators. Okay, so we have our own core. We are a telecom operator, a neutral telecom operator. So we sign agreements of extension of coverage with carriers, with MNOs, mobile network operators around the world, and we do extension of the coverage, which basically means that the same SIM from Telefonica, from Vodafone, from AT&T, or who is our partner, can seamlessly roam from cellular, terrestrial, to satellite. Okay, again, without any change in the device. Key takeaways are, of course, the cost of a device is a standard device, so it's quite low. You can think about a few dollars. And the cost of connectivity is going to be quite low as well, very similar to terrestrial. And there's something also quite special on this, because when we talk massive, we expect this to be in the hundreds of millions of take-up in the next 5 years. Okay. And that's all, actually. So probably I have the shortest presentation because I've been told to use just 2 slides. So I stay to the 2 slides, and that's all from my side. Thank you.
So, Gianluca, thank you so much. I think you had 2 slides, but you had a wealth of information. So as we, again, look at this whole continuum from terrestrial to early stage satellite, or what I'll call the original satellite, which was gateway backhaul focused, to the Astrocast model, which was an earlier adopter, an earlier entrance using some proprietary technologies, but achieving that direct to satellite technology, and then moving back towards the standards, which is now kind of an NB-IoT, release 17 of the 3GPP. We're kind of making a full circle back to NB-IoT and LP-WA, and that leads us to our final speaker on the panel, which is from Core Wireless. And Rajan, why don't you take us through, your use of NB-IoT, lightweight M2M, 5G, and how you also have a couple of use cases at the end, I think, where you're going to talk about some satellite multimodal solutions. So with that, I'll turn it to you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Rajan Shah. I'm with Core Wireless. Just to be able to bring a few people up to speed, if you're not familiar with Core Wireless, we are an IoT enabler, and we basically focus on helping customers manage, scale, and deploy their simple and complex IoT solutions, spanning from connectivity, IoT hardware solutions, as well as analytics and managed services. And in such doing so, we're able to do this with connectivity solutions in over 190 different countries, managing over 13 million devices concurrently here today, with over 3,600 customers, with a base camp of over 500 people and 12 different unique offices, providing worldwide support with a variety of awards as well. Jumping right into the meat of the discussion, what I want to talk about is, IoT technology, cellular technology is in a very interesting climate right now. We're in a very unique area where, as what many people already know, 2G and 3G is in the process of sunsetting, if not a few solutions already today. We're starting to see the upward cusp of 5G starting to hit. 4G LTE is already very live and prevalent within our ecosystem. But we are also starting to see in parallel a very massive, aggressive growth of LP-WA within our massive IoT deployments. And this is primarily consisting of narrowband IoT, LTE Cat-M, and LoRaWAN. And really, this is meeting the needs that is now going to be deficient with 2G and 3G now sunsetting and going away. Customers are relying more and more on battery-operated devices. They're relying on deployments that may be 5, 10, 15 years of life once they're deployed, non-serviceable. And they need to be able to find something that is able to bridge that gap of low cost with a moderate level of complexity and also connectivity, throughput, and data speeds. So with that being said, 4G LTE, although it's not going anywhere anytime soon, it really is not intended for these low-power battery-operated devices. That's really where LP-WA comes in. There's been some complexities with LP-WA. It has not been truly worldwide. Some of the carriers were waiting until 2G and 3G fully went away until they really started deploying and putting the efforts of LP-WA through. And then that really now brings us to the 5G side of the fence. 5G is clearly where the industry is moving towards. right now 5G is very similar in terms of footprint of where LPWA originally started. It is not universal across the globe. The beauty between 5G, it is backwards compatible. So anywhere where you do have 5G deployments, and we're calling this non-standalone deployments here today, you do have the flexibility of gaining the benefit of the 4G. But even right now, you're not getting a true system of what LPWA requires, but the 5G network is getting there. So what we always mention is we're in the decade of IoT today. There's several ways to optimize your solution and your deployment, whether it be 4G migrating to non-standalone 5G, moving to standalone 5G. And it really takes a team of people to be able to help determine what the complexities between the hardware, the connectivity, the location, what type of application you're doing. And we're able to help customers do this, but not without its challenges. And that's where I'll go into next. Really here, what we see is several companies are pursuing the path of IoT deployment. Sometimes it's not even their core level of deployment. It's not their main strategy of what they're focusing on. And they're doing this in-house. They don't necessarily have the experience. They haven't gone through the complexities. They haven't gone through certifications, geography requirements, technology requirements, whatever that may be. And they struggle. And several times they're having to learn of these complexities and intricacies all on their own. And what this means is that they have a delayed time to market. They have a slowed revenue curve and realization. They may be working with technology incompatibilities, not realizing that one solution may work in one area and not another area. They may exceed their initial budgets, which will then handcuff what their true solution and deployment may look like, and ultimately have a higher risk of failure. And that's really what we have been seeing. 60% of IoT initiatives stall just at the proof of concept stage. 26% of the companies, even after they deploy, don't believe it's been a complete success. And about a third of these go into production and they still are not convinced that it truly was a successful project. It can be very complicated, and that's really where we try to strive to help our customers. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but we took a look at all of our lessons learned and all of our customer engagements, and we've identified 49, the list goes well beyond this, but 49 steps in what we consider an end-to-end IoT process, which we call our 7x7. This is how we help organizations deploy, manage, and scale their IoT solutions. Several customers and organizations aren't equipped to support these all themselves, and they may have a couple areas of expertise, but they can't handle all of these themselves. And that's where working with a partner like Core or another IoT enabler, helps these customers be able to deploy and to be able to prevent any delays to market, achieve the ROI that they're looking for, and meet all their managed business objectives. And when we talk about why IoT projects fail, where Core may be able to help companies overcome some of these complexities, this matrix is exactly what we're referring to. One of the examples I just wanted to touch on is an example where Core helped to architect, develop, deploy, and completely manage a complex IoT solution. And this is with Swoop Aero. Swoop Aero delivers air transport for on-demand healthcare, and their mission statement is to be able to do this to everyone, everywhere, regardless of location. They bridge the gap in logistics by overcoming the complexities with vast distances, traffic, and location accessibility. So what we helped to do with Swoop is we developed a global resilient connectivity platform for their drone logistics deployment program, which would allow them to launch solutions anywhere from ground, even over sea. So we're currently supplying them with not only the cellular connectivity when they're land-based with available cellular accessibility, but also satellite connectivity when they are in areas where cellular connectivity just simply is not available. And that even on top of that, we're helping to deploy our eSIM or our electronic SIM solution. So this means regardless of where they're looking to deploy in the world, it's still a singular SIM solution that can work on either roaming or native platforms, regardless of where their drone is moving worldwide. And we're continuing to support them through multiple platforms and ensuring they have a continued success. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It was a pleasure speaking here today. Thanks again.
Well, very good. Thank you. And now it's the fun time for the panel. So everybody gave us a lot of information, and I'd like to ask all the panelists to turn their cameras on. And we will we will move into the Q&A, and we actually have quite a few questions that have come in. I want to make sure the panelists, feel free to jump in and make this conversational as we go. One of the appropriate and I think early questions that came in is when you think about terrestrial and non-terrestrial. Talk to us about how seamless IoT dual mode terrestrial and satellite non-terrestrial type devices actually can work. And I'm going to lead off with Jean-Luc on that one, and then maybe pass it off to Fabien, and then we'll go to the rest, and we'll keep it open.
Well, it's extremely seamless. It means that the same device can connect to both networks. Okay. Of course, the profile in the SIM is deciding which network has to be connected first. Typically, it's terrestrial, okay, for capacity and price. I would say most of the modules they allow it, so it's quite easy, affordable, and convenient.
So in your case, it's not so much a device integration, it's more of a roaming agreement type of, between the terrestrial and the non-terrestrial. So it should be seamless at the device side for your implementation.
Indeed, that's exactly the case.
Okay, very good. So Fabien, why don't you talk about the Astrocast model? There is certainly a little difference because you have some proprietary technologies in there that are, again, proven and rolled out as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way we have taken, and what we see from the customers and the industry is that the dream of one technology that fits all is not there yet, and usually you have different type of transceivers that are really optimized for different networks, and most of our demand are linked to devices that embed several transceivers that are all optimized, miniaturized, low power, low cost. But then you have the intelligence on board the device that switches between the different networks. And I would say, I think from the protocol side as well, unlike the 5G NB-IoT through satellite or the LoRa through satellite, the Astrocast protocol was developed and optimized with direct-to-satellite connectivity in mind, from the ground up, not as an extension of terrestrial IoT technology. And I think this is important. Our protocol doesn't need prior GPS tracking, doesn't need paging before every communication. It supports the bidirectional and store and forward function. So NB-IoT doesn't support store and forward operation. In addition, our protocol has less data overhead than LoRa and NB-IoT, so it results in less energy consumed per byte sent. So all these advantages are key when you look at the big picture, the total power consumption, the total cost of your solution. And we think we're still far from seeing any transceiver that can really seamlessly communicate between terrestrial and satellite network. And from the operation side, operating a satellite network is quite complex. And with the experience that we gained over the past 5 years, we think that until we really see this constellation stabilizing and having something to offer that is reliable and that big customers can build on, it's going to take a lot of time. So our focus is right now on proprietary protocol. This is a technology that is available and that can really solve the problems that we see right now. And if in the long term we think we have to evolve towards compatibility with 5G IoT protocol, we can still do this later on. But right now, we don't think it's the way to go, especially given the request that speaking of the telcos, we've received a lot of interest from telcos recently as they see us as an easy way to supplement their network, even though they have to switch from a different transceiver. It still does make a lot of sense in particularly for the shipping container industry, as I mentioned before.
So if I'm a device maker and I want to have a dual mode, I have to have space to basically put two chips down, your module and then a terrestrial module. from
but
another
you make
maker.
more than that. If you take a typical device, you usually have LoRa, you have cellular, you have Bluetooth, you have sometimes a Wi-Fi sniffing. It's always a combination of several transceivers that are highly optimized and dedicated to specific use case. You always start with the use case. The use case is always dependent on many different networks, so it means several transceivers that you integrate in your device, and then you build the intelligence on board the device to seamlessly switch between this network and save costs and optimize, with regard to roaming aspect, lack of coverage, and other factors.
Okay. Well, I thought it was nice the way you said it.
Yeah, sorry.
You said it depends on the use case.
Absolutely.
And Z, you're jumping in.
No, it was actually, I think it was Gianluca, but I'll just go ahead and comment. I agree that it depends on the use case. You have a scenario where if you can transmit using cellular, generally speaking, that tends to be preferred if you have coverage available. And then customers have deployed units that are hybrid, have both cellular transceivers and a satellite transceiver. And when it leaves cellular coverage, if you have that requirement and need to transmit when the device is located remotely, I mean, northern wilds of Canada, for example, right? There are plenty of locations where devices have been operating using existing satellite. And it has been a little bit more difficult for them. I mean, there are some existing LEOs out there. Last time I looked, there were on the order of 12 to 14 new efforts going along in implementing LEO for IoT with different technologies, different approaches. Once the constellations get full, that's when I think we will see some meaningful growth there in terms of people using either hybrid or, as in Astrocast's case, maybe using a single radio modem for transmitting on both technologies. You have to manage that, and there's no doubt about it. Our existing customers have multiple services. They have to manage different provisioning systems, different numbering schemes, different data receipt paths, different latencies. So you got to deal with that.
Right. So Rajan, you actually had a great use case. Your very, very last slide that we saw. Can you tell us how that was done? Was there two transceivers in the one satellite, the drone model?
Yeah, exactly. So we basically helped the customer. They had an existing solution which was 100% cellular based for one localized area. We help them to not only take their cellular to more of a global approach by utilizing an eSIM, which can then work anywhere across the planet, but then also mirroring in, and my memory serves me correctly, I believe on that solution it was an Iridium solution, but basically then helping them connect the interconnectivity dots so that when their device would move into one area with cellular, it would no longer use the satellite, and vice versa. When they would move out of a cellular coverage area, that data and that transition of communication would happen seamlessly without a notable drop or restart or anything along those matters. But yes, there were two unique solutions that were interconnected together.
Okay, I'm going to try to combine a couple of questions so we can have some dialogue on this. So with product lifecycle, 2G, 3G kind of coming to an end, we've had some challenges in terms of expectations being met on the uptake of LP-WAN or LP-WA IoT. We see the curves. We see the Ericsson data presented by Sahid. We see the information that was presented by Core. Where does this all go? Who's in the lead right now? And is there room for the unlicensed spectrums like LoRa LoRa Sigfox type technologies? And I think we're even seeing little LoRa type technologies on some satellite folks that are out there, not from Astrocast or Satilia, but there are players also participating in the LoRa space. So, Z, I'm gonna take it to you to start that one off.
Okay, that's a darn good question, and I appreciate I think the knowledge and awareness that 2G, 3G sunsets are slowly sunsetting around the world. Obviously, in some countries like North America, 2G, 3G just simply doesn't exist for IoT applications, let alone anything else today. So there is a transition that has been going on for a number of years now. Frankly, we have not been deploying any for example, any CDMA units for years now. All of our new deployments were LTE and then LTE-M. Now, there is a difference, and one of the questions I think was sort of identifying which one is in the lead. Well, it depends on where you are. In our case, LTE-M is proving to be sufficiently excellent at providing a good replacement for 2G, 3G, that most of our customers are going there. And then the question comes up, will narrowband catch up and go beyond that? It could. It certainly could do that. I think that if I might add one additional comment, which is that going to a low power, low cost radio module and service means that you're trying to keep your overall cost down. And when you deploy units in the billions, you have to worry about that. And so in the typical modules that tend to be available today means for NB-IoT and as well as somebody like Astrocast means you have to build a device. It is not a plug-in module. It's not an old-style IoT device that people can just swap out at a moment's notice, which means that you now have to design it carefully. You have to build a board, potentially go through multiple manufacturing cycles to get the product just right, get your firmware just right. So it takes time. And I think that successful LTE-M deployments have been occurring certainly on our network, and I'm sure on Core and other people as well. NB-IoT hasn't caught on as effectively yet with some of the carriers that have deployed out there for two reasons. One is that LTE-M is an easy add-on, if you will, to an existing LTE network, whereas NB-IoT requires some additional infrastructure, which takes time. And so carriers, as Rajen also mentioned, I think are taking their time to go from a 2G, 3G downturn into some of these next generation technologies. LoRa plays a part, mostly in private networks, as far as I can tell so far, although there are some efforts going on to provide public networks as well. We'll just have to see how it all shakes out over the next 2 to 5 years.
Great. Rajan, do you want to jump in and add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely second everything that Z mentioned. It really comes down, just because, and I call it, there's a lot of decision fatigue. There's a lot of solutions out there. You have Cat M1, you have narrowband IoT, you have LoRa, you have private LTE, Wi-Fi 6, satellite. You have several different solutions. So depending on what your application is, the use case, how much data do you need to transmit, how often do you need to transmit, how fast does that data need to transmit, and where you are in the world will really dictate what is the best solution. I do agree Cat M is really, I would say, growing at a larger rate from what we see with our customer deployments than what we see for narrowband IoT. There's just an extra layer of complexity and deployment decisions to be made when trying to deploy with narrowband IoT. But we have been seeing, LoRaWAN networks, deploying out at a much faster rate, much more so than we saw, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it is a little bit of a race. I think there are, several people that are in that leading curve, but I would say there's several solutions out there. And then, working with an organization that's aware of several of these, just aware of these different solutions is really the best path for anyone attempting to go down this journey.
Right. So I'm going to take a jump here, and let's talk about, you had mentioned LTE-M. Is it possible to offer ultra reliable, lower latency, mission critical communications using, standards-based LTE-M or NB-IoT over LEO-SAT communications? And Jean-Luc, I'm going to turn that to you to start, because I think that's a big question, and there's a lot of answers probably depending on the definition of low latency. And I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, standard, any standard in any technology, in any solution so far has been always successful. Okay. And in the automobile, in the telecom, in video cassettes, everywhere. Okay. So somebody can call us maybe crazy, but when you go for the standard, you go really for the massive adoption. Okay. Because price of the final solution, the total cost of final price is the key one. And a big part of it is the cost of the RF module that sets, which is part of the device. Okay. So we are starting building as everybody, the constellation of satellites, step by step. We want to go fast, but we want to do it step by step. Okay. And with more satellites, you have less latency or delay between one message to the other, less satellites, you have more delay. Okay, we have a solution which is store and forward, which allows with just few satellites to already give service with high latency. And then we want to go to very low latency, let's say probably almost real time, around 1, 2, 3 minutes, where you need a lot of satellites. We forecast this, we're planning to have it in 2024, okay? That would we would be able to serve the critical applications, okay? But again, there's a lot of market which doesn't require critical. I would be very happy to have a solution that is very inexpensive. It can be deployed really in a multi-million device mode.
Okay, so that's great. So you've given us a little bit of insights into timeline, at least in terms of it's about the constellation. So it's about launches and successful deployments and really building out the constellation. When I think of timelines commercially, I also think about the built-out ecosystem for the terrestrial side. There's a lot of IoT system integrators that know terrestrial, that are core partners and ARIS partners. There are a lot of device makers that are already engaged in the terrestrial side. When we think about the timelines for non-terrestrial and how someone who may not be so aware and tuned into the emerging opportunities, what's the best way to engage? And Fabien, why don't I start with you, and we'll jump to Jean-Luc, and then we'll come back around. But Fabien, what do you think of the timeline to engage, and how is it best for companies to engage if they're new to satellite?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends again on the application, the use case, and the latency that you need. You were talking about mission critical applications. I think this is one part of the market, but the major part of the market is not. It doesn't require low latency. We think that if we can go below 15 minutes, it's already it's most of the market basically. When it comes to remote areas, right? Because remember, satellites really brings an advantage when it's not when you don't have anything on the ground, right? So you're talking about application in remote areas. Now we know it takes time to build. Everybody knows here how long it takes to build a new device, to build a new solution. So I would say the sooner the better, in the sense that we are deploying our satellites quite rapidly. We're going to launch new satellites even this year. So every time we launch new satellites, you reduce the latency by a significant factor. And I would say before, around 2024, 5, we hope to be to pass below the 15 minutes. And if you have an application that is in this range of latency, and you need a year or a year and a half to build your device and your application, it's a good time to start thinking about it already. It really depends on the use case. We have seen some customers who are very quick to integrate, and they do everything themselves, and in a matter of weeks, it's done. For other market, it's a long road. So it really, again, depends on the use case.
So never better time than the present, it sounds like, if you're interested, get started. So, well, let's do something in reverse order. I would really like to just give each of our panelists, 1 minute, just final thoughts, highlights, and we'll start with Rajan, and we'll go right to left.
Sure, thank you. Well, I mean, first off, it's a pleasure speaking here today. It's great to be a part of this panel, and really, we're all leave off with is we really are truly an exciting time right now. We are working with two technologies, 2G and 3G, which are on its way of sunsetting. 4G LTE is here today, LP-WA, Cat M1, narrowband, LoRa, private LTE, with the cusp of 5G and everything that is known and unknown of what that may offer to existing and new deployments, but really a matter of what deployments can you now suffice with these new technologies, with these new power bands, with the new levels of communication. It further opens up the possibility of allowing things to be connected where previously it was unable to due to cost or technology or whatnot. So truly are exciting times. And me personally, I'm more than happy to help anyone looking to further discuss any of those areas. But yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Gianluca.
First of all, that's awesome to be here, and I need to thank everybody for that opportunity. We are seeing at Satello that we are at the brink of revolution with this standardization of the satellite communications. Okay, I would invite everybody to have a look at our website. Okay, satello.space. We open an early adopter program where exactly that's what you mentioned, Fred. Anybody can contact us, and they can be informed, and they can be part of the ones that are going to benefit from the service the first. Okay, we support them also technically to see the integration if anything is required. And we are seeing that the narrowband IoT is the solution for specific applications. Okay, narrowband IoT and LTM are not necessarily solving the same issue. And basically, we are there. We are there, the first ones in on satellite and standard IoT standard, like a lot, because that's the differentiation, and that's where we think that slowly all the solution will converge on the standard. That's why we say standard a lot. Thanks a lot.
Very good. Thank you. So, Fabien?
Yeah, well, thanks again, Fred, and thanks everyone for listening to these different discussions that are key, I think, for everybody to understand where the industry is evolving. If you want a satellite solution today for your IoT project, we are the only operators who is commercially with a service that is commercially available, that is low power and two-way and reliable, with a strong encryption and all the security aspect that you need. The service offered by the established players are typically real-time services and way too expensive for the cost-sensitive segment that doesn't really need real-time data transmission. So we are in an excellent position to help you build your solution, and feel free to engage. We have a full team dedicated to product integration, and I would be very happy to support you in extending your connectivity to the remote areas of the planet.
Excellent. Thank you, Fabien. Z?
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thank you, IMC, and thanks for all the attendees. I think that it is important to keep in mind that we have alternatives. We have multiple connectivity choices available, and there is no doubt in my mind that you have to think through the requirements of the application before you make that connectivity choice. And we help people do exactly that. There are situations where hybrid satellites / cellular solutions might make sense. There are solutions where ultimately Satelliot and some of their cellular protocol-based approaches might work better than not. It all depends. And unfortunately, there's no simple answer, but I will leave it in the following way. I've been involved with IoT applications for over 25 years at this point, and I can tell you that every year we have said, this is the year of massive growth. This is the year where we'll see it happen. And it's kept getting pushed out for a variety of reasons. But I truly believe that in the next 2 to 5 years, we'll see that massive growth happen. That numbers that Ericsson provides and the numbers that Rajan said are going to be what the future holds for us over the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, because IoT is proving its worth in a variety of different markets. And if you need coverage, satellite may be the right solution. If you need throughput and IP connections, then LTM over cellular might be the right solution. It all depends. There's a class of applications for which satellite makes a lot of sense. There's a class of applications where hybrid makes a lot of sense. And then there'll be some applications where even 5G may not be fast enough. It all depends. And so there is no simple answer, but I encourage people to come talk to us and the other providers of IoT services to see how we can help them going forward. Thank you, Fred.
So this has been maybe one of the most exciting panels I've ever had the opportunity to moderate. And I think it is about choice, and we think about choice sometimes as complexity, but we're moving into a realm of IoT evolution where it's not that hard. There's a lot of choices. It used to be hard and a lot of choices. Now it's getting easier, but you still have a lot of choices. So I'm an advocate for LP-WA. You know, you can see, you know, IoT launch, our tagline is experience, ecosystem, and, you know, knowledge. It's execution, right? So we're at the point now where these types of solutions that were only imagined before, you know, putting a tracker on a polar bear would have been really hard to do in the terrestrial world. Well, in the NTN, it's easy. We can do that. There's ways to do that. So it's exciting. You know, there's been challenges and questions between licensed spectrum and unlicensed spectrum. So we're never going to be without choice and sometimes challenge or conflict. But this has been great. And I've got a very strong feeling that we're going to see a lot more from our satellite members at IMC. I think the questions have been fantastic. I want to remind everybody who's put questions in that we didn't get to, they will be answered offline. And I just want to extend my immense appreciation for the panel, the wisdom you guys all bring, the great questions from the audience, and IMC for bringing this event to us here during the summer IoT days. And with that, I also want to remind all of the participants on the panel, the attendees, who I will tell you, we didn't lose hardly anybody. That's rare. By the time we get into the 15, 20, 30 minutes of questions, we lose a lot of attendees. So we're on a topic that is exciting. But another topic that's maybe equally exciting is we look at you know, public policy taking shape in the IoT industry and some challenges that we have if we don't pay attention. We will have a session tomorrow, so register to join. And that's also going to be at 11 o'clock Eastern. And with that, I will close up. And again, just extend appreciation and thanks for the tech team on the IMC side for making this possible, and for all of you who participated in the audience who stuck in there and gave us great challenging questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you.
Thank you.